Hey everyone, it is Jamie from Independence Street Tarot and Seasons Ritual, and I'm here to talk about Jupiter moving into Cancer today on June 9th, and then also the full moon in Sagittarius. That's going to be happening on June 11th. So I think they segue perfectly into each other because we're going to be talking a lot about fire. So today is June 9th, and it is the feast of Vesta. Vesta is the Roman goddess of the home and the hearth and the sacred flame. She was the sacred flame of Rome. And wherever Rome conquered, they lit another flame to Vesta. So Vesta was, or the fire of Vesta, the flame of Vesta was kept burning by the Vestal virgins. She had six virgins that kept this flame going, and they were in servitude to Vesta um, until the age of around 30, and then they were free to go. The Vestal virgins were free to marry afterwards, but when they were in their priestesshood, they were not allowed to marry or have boyfriends or anything like that. They were strictly there to be the keepers of the flame. They were versed in many mystery schools. They were educated. They were very revered. I was reading to my friend said it said if they walked past a condemned man, he was immediately pardoned because that's how much reverence they had towards these priestesses. And I think it's really interesting, twofold. So, this idea about the flame and the sacred flame in the vessel, right? Vesta, she was of the hearth, but of the home. She was the sacred flame of the home. And ourselves, our bodies is a sacred place. Our bodies is our original home. And today, Jupiter will move into Cancer, and the sign of Cancer rules the home. That's why I'm so excited about this. And so excited to talk about it. Cancer rules the home. And then you have Jupiter, who's our biggest planet in the solar system. Um, Jupiter in mythology would be the same as Zeus. Vesta in Greek mythology is Hestia absorbed her, but Vesta was more revered and more ancient. And actually, like no matter how much time went by, the Vestal virgins did not change the way that they held ritual for Vesta until her flame was put out when Christianity rose. So Vesta is a sacred was a sacred, very sacred ancient goddess, and I do believe I think it's because she was the original flame. So Jupiter, back to Jupes. So Jupiter is moving into Cancer, which is the home, and Jupiter rules Sagittarius, which is fire. So we have the biggest planet, Jupiter, which represents fire, moving into Cancer, which represents the home, on the same day as Vesta's feast day. And I think this is really special. I think it's really prominent. And I think it's something that we need to be aware of. Jupiter is a masculine planet. Sagittarius is fire. It's seen as masculine traits. And it's moving into Cancer, which is cardinal water. Um, Cancer rules the home. Cancer rules creativity. I say that about most signs. Creativity, Cancer rules love. Cancer rules the womb. Cancer is ruled by the moon, right? Which is our intuition. And then you have the flame coming back into the home. And also, it is this idea of this masculine energy being reconnected to the feminine energy. So it's another level of this integration that we have of divine masculines and divine feminine energy being woven back together as we welcome in this new age of Aquarius. Um, I think that it's important because, Jupiter is this idea of expansion, right? And its gifts and its luck. And it is this way that we see the world, right? Jupiter helps us understand the world. Jupiter, Sagittarius likes to go out and be with the people. Sagittarius is the adventurer. Sagittarius likes to see what works for others and see if they can bring it to themselves. And if not, then they're pretty much a live and let live sort of sign. Lower Sagittarius vibes is a little judgy. They can be kind of funny and sarcastic. And they have when they start to look at out the world and maybe make some sarcastic opinions. But at the highest, it wants to adventure. It wants to go out. It does want to meet people. It does like to learn. It does like to talk. It's like Jupiter or, Sagittarius can be like the life of the party if you almost, but it is because they're so interested and it lights that imagination. It lights that fire. It lights that questioning, right? They are that inspiration. And people love that about fire signs and fire in general. And so, we have this fire going back into the home, relighting our own vessel, right? Relighting our own selves, remembering what makes us virginal in the day to day, what makes us sacred in the day to day, what makes us fresh and new in the day to day, and remembering that it's okay to be that way. It's okay to be sacred. It's okay to be soft. It's okay to want to go out and learn things, right? It's okay to have that boundary, light that fire. Whoa, stay back, or dim that fire. Oh, okay, come on in. But where we are now, in this new age of Aquarius and how we have to reintegrate this masculine and feminine energy, I think it's really important and really important that we speak out loud about this, about every time you know, a major transit happens, Jupiter will be in Cancer for about a year, or a little over a year, as in like it's going in on the 9th, and I think it moves out next year on the 30th. So a year and some days. And Cancer is welcoming this giant, all this fire into her home because she understands it's time for us to reignite our fire. It's time for us to be reacquainted with this masculine energy, and it's time for us to understand how they do integrate together. With Jupiter coming in, which is movement, and going into cardinal water, which wants to initiate. This new way of being or this new way of feeling or this new way of integrating and this new way of intuiting, right? And so they get to meet and they get to work it out for the next year. Okay, like this is how it's going to be. In Jupiter, understanding this idea of Cancer holding space, this water sign holding space. Like if you think about the womb or you think about your home or you think about yourself, like we hold space for ourselves. And then within the space, this fire gets to build, this fire gets to be tended to, and this fire gets to be our own sacred fire, the way that we see ourselves, the way that we want the world to see us, right? The way that we inspire ourselves, but also the way we inspire the world. And this is coming into just a new way of being, a new way of speaking, but also like a new way of showing up. And this idea that this flame can come back in and really start to light anew and then also burn off what we no longer need. So, when I think of Cancer, because Cancer is ruled by the moon in the Tarot, when I see the moon card, I often mention Cancer because to me it's no brainer. But also the Chariot card. The Chariot card is also associated with the sign of Cancer. And the Chariot card, which I think is really interesting, but the Chariot card is all about victory. It's about moving fast, which a lot of times I don't see moving specifically fast with water signs. Not to say they can't move fast, but it's just not the top of my head. But we have the Chariot here. It's the number 7 card. Um, it's being pulled by the Sphinx, right? And so we have Cancer representing this Chariot. And so this is this victory. The fact that Jupiter is only in there for a year, that's not very long when it comes to astrology, right? When some of these planets move half a second in 250 years, right? Um, but he's going to be in there really quickly, and this is going to be victorious for us. We are going to be able to integrate Jupiter, all this fire moving into the sign of the home, right? We're going to relight our sacred fire. We are going to maybe remember what it's like to sit in reverence with ourselves when I'm thinking of Vesta too, and like this idea that the flame can never go out, right? Maybe sometimes it gets really dim, or maybe sometimes, or maybe at a while we've been sitting at a crossroads and we were just like, "Phew, any day now, spirit, or any day now, universe, so ready to get inspired again, ready for things to light back up." This is your invitation, everybody. This is your invitation to allow things to start to light back up. And if you don't feel it right now, and you don't feel it in your heart, or you don't feel it in your bones, and you don't feel it in your home, like your physical home, we've got a year. Give it a couple days. We're moving into this full moon of Sagittarius. Okay. And Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter. So I guess we'll roll into the full moon reading. Um, and the moon, right? Full moon. So we have the moon who's the moon is in will be in Sagittarius, right? And then we have Jupiter that rules Sagittarius moving into Cancer, who is ruled by the moon. So again, mutual reception, I would say. Is that right, you guys? Mutual reception. But coming back into this remembering of who we are, and it's almost coming back into this remembering of who we are, who we were supposed to be originally, and moving out of all these old stories that maybe the world has pushed us into being. And a lot of people right now have been talking about feeling really sensitive, or, old stories coming up back to the surface. And I want to talk about this two ways. If you've been on a personal journey for a long time, and you've been doing the work, and you've been doing the work, and these feelings or emotions are coming up right now, back again. On one hand, yes, it's another layer, but it's also important for us to take a beat, take a step back and decide how we want to handle with what's coming up. You don't necessarily like if you do want to sit with this and unpack it again, then yes, do so. Whatever makes you feel good. But I also want to say, if you've unpacked it for a really long time and it's come up again, this is the time to really look at your tools. And you can make that decision because we're in Gemini season, right? The sun is still in Gemini. You can pick a path. You can also say, I feel pretty good about how I know how to handle this. And I just don't think I want to think about it anymore. I am ready to move on. And that happened to me like this twice. So one thing came up, um, and I got a response, and it was gaslighty, right? And I knew it was gaslighting me, and that's okay because that's what happened. But I made the choice right then and there to be like, I don't want to keep getting gaslit by this person, or discussing this anymore. And I just made the decision right then and there that, okay, I'm not gonna, it's not that I'm not gonna let it bother me, but I just don't care what they think about it. Does that make sense? So, this idea that I have to show up and I have to give my case and I have to say, well, actually this, or what about this, or, how about that? And I was like, I don't want to do that anymore. I've literally done that now for over 20 effing years. I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit what this person thinks. I really don't. I mean, I really don't. Them saying this gaslights me, but I'm not gonna get on the defensive and be like, well, actually, I was just like, I don't care anymore. I don't. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay. Because for 20 years, it was very important for me to make a point, which I've been making consistently, and they still say the same shit. Okay, so that's then on me. This is on me to be who I want to be and what I want to focus on and how I want to move forward. Okay. It doesn't mean that I wasn't gaslit. I was, but I realized that and I kind of worked through it. Doesn't mean I didn't have like the most spiritual nice things to say about this person at the time either. Again, though, Did I want to keep rolling down that hill and make that snowball bigger? Or did I just, I'll tell you what I did. I just said, I'm 47. I don't give a shit anymore. Okay, great. At the end of the day, this person still lives their life. I still live my life, you know? The second thing that came up is I was visiting with my mom. We had a very good visit. And anyway, but she was telling me about, maybe I need to moisturize more. Okay. Sometimes moms do, they give advice. And this is also important because cancer that rules the home, it can bring up, I wouldn't say, well, it can bring up issues with the mother. So yes, it can bring issues with the mother or the mother figure or in that kind of realm. And then again, with Jupiter moving into Cancer, it can bring up issues around the father, right? Because this is Jupiter is a masculine sign. And again, it's moving into Cancer, which is the home. So if things are coming up from your past or your family life, it's very understandable. It's very understandable. So this one, so anyway, long story short, I was moisturizing myself this morning and there was this huge deep urge within me. I was like, oh, I better text my mom and let her know that I'm moisturizing my skin. And I was like, yeah, I was like, wait, and it was just like such a deep pool of like, oh, I really need to let my mom know, which isn't surprising because of the people pleasing gene that I have apparently that's inside of me. But I had to just give it a second and just tell myself, and this is something that I teach people that I work with about working with your inner child. I had to tell my inner child that she is everything's okay. She doesn't need to keep showing up and to make phone calls to mom in order to get mom's approval. I was able to tell her she can go outside and play and have a good time. That 47-year-old Jamie knows she moisturizes regularly. And 47-year-old Jamie's brain is the one making these decisions and living her life now. And so then that calmed that feeling. Okay. And then I just went about my day. So could I keep unpacking that if I wanted to? Sure. Do I feel like that I want to? No. And that's okay. When this full moon comes up, okay, moon in Sagittarius, sun in Gemini, and they're at 20 degrees, which is going into those degrees of mastery. I think they're degrees of mastery. So it's a more mature place to be with the sun and the moon within the 30 degrees of each sign. We've got these choices to make again and how we want to communicate to ourselves. Mercury has also just moved into Cancer. So this way of speaking to ourselves, we can initiate a new way of speaking to ourselves, speaking to others, but it can be more gentle. It can be more loving. It can be more compassionate. It can be more empathetic to the self, instead of thinking like, God, like, why am I still thinking about this? I'm never gonna, we don't have to do that. It's like, this came up again. What do I need to do with this? Do I want to unpack it? And look, there might be things that come up that you do need to unpack, okay? I'm kind of talking about things that maybe we've been circling with for years, in the idea of how we want to see ourselves right now at this moment moving forward, how we want to see our vessel right now at this time moving forward, what we need to do in order to transmute all those old stories in order for our flame to be relit in order to move forward. Because this is a beautiful time. I know it's hard. If I could rewrite things, I would change the world so we could just be in awe about how much energy is coming on the planet and how these planets are aligning and how things are shifting and changing without all this other caca that's going on in the news, right? It's disheartening when you see it that way because when you sit and you study these things and you can see all the beauty that's coming in and all the things that are changing. Um, you can see why these other things that aren't awesome that are happening because it is that end of that patriarchy. It is the beginning, or yeah, it is the beginning of the masculine and feminine coming together, even though they've been trying to do this for years. And so it's really like highlighting what doesn't work and why, and how oppressive it's been to everyone on the planet. Um, and so seeing those things as well, right? Maybe working through feelings of, when you're in the manosphere and they don't have really great things to say about women, and when you're just a woman and you just can look at life and you don't really have great things to say about men. And you've got to come into this place of yourself with your masculine and feminine and how that works to reintegrate this, to have that flame again, to have that peace, to have that creativity, to have that intuition, to have that movement that goes so seamlessly. And it is a challenge, right? It is a challenge. We have to go through these tests, if you will, if you want to call it that, in order to make this new tapestry. And where we are right now, 0 degrees to me is always a karmic turning point. And so we're at this another karmic turning point with um, Jupiter at 0 degrees of Cancer. How do we allow this flame to come back into our home? How do we allow our masculine within us to reclaim space to work beautifully, right? With the way the feminine side of us works, and how to integrate that seamlessly. At the time of the full moon, there will be a grand trine between the moon, Mars, Mars, who is also fire, and Mars is at the end of Leo, right? Fixed fire, and Leo is ruled by the sun. So it's going to be the moon, Mars, and then in Aries, who Mars rules. The third part of that trine is Chiron and Eris. And Chiron again is that wounded healer, or that those things in us that we see wounded. So that part of me that could have been that child to be like, oh hey mom, no, I'm moisturizing, um, moving through that, and telling her like. I know 47-year-old me knows I'm moisturizing, but sitting with Eris, and Eris is the discord, right? Eris is the goddess of, she's the same way of she wants everything to be fair. She wants justice for everything. And so there is that point where in this full moon with this trine that we should be able to see where things weren't fair, or things didn't move fairly, or we couldn't show up as ourselves, right? Aries is that I am presence, because we were too busy working out other people's ideas or scenarios of themselves through us, if that makes sense. So kids usually, things are put upon us, from our family and society. And then, and I feel like this is to a point where we're actually being able to understand that and break away from those things in order to show up with who we are, right? And so Eris could be the one bringing in that discord. The moon, which is in Sagittarius, lighting that fire again. Chiron, who's in Aries. I mean, Aries, Chiron and Eris are both in Aries, right? Ruled by Mars. And where is Mars right now? In Leo, which is that fixed fire, which is that inspiration. Leo rules the heart, And so this is a time, I'd say now through the full moon, of deep healing, right? Which I know we use that word a lot. Um, but really, it is this time of deep healing and ending those karmic cycles where maybe we thought we had to keep showing up in an egotistical sort of way to be like, actually, this is who I am, or actually, a lot of showing up in a way where we had to keep defending who we are, right? And I can tell you, like, where I am in my life, like, I'm not going to defend. Like, you know what I mean? Like not in a mean way. Like, if someone comes at me in a certain way, I'm going to be like, that's not it. But like, going back to my family of origin, like, constantly reminding them that I know what I'm doing, or I got things under control, or, things like that. It's this time where I get to move into this idea of my home, who I am, my vessel, what makes that virginal, what makes that fresh, what makes that new, where is that flame that's inside of me that now gets to shine more comfortably the way I want it to shine because I'm not constantly working through other people's insecurities or ideas or beliefs. I hope that makes sense, you guys. I hope that makes sense because that grand trine is really helping us with that. Mars being elevated in Leo, lower Leo is that ego, that puffed up ego. Ugh, well, only I know what I'm doing. Um, and then, Mars, who if before who didn't have any accountability was the god of war. And he'd want to come and tell you something, right? And then you got Aries, who was also the god of war because he's ruled by Mars. But the fact that these divine masculine energies are in there, and Mars is now that spiritual warrior. He knows he doesn't have to go to battle if it's not a winning battle. He knows he doesn't have to go to battle if the battle's already been fought. Like, it's okay, right? And then Chiron, the parts of him that maybe, or the parts of us that maybe we didn't feel were healed or were still wounded, is saying, no, it's okay. Those parts are healed, and the way that you know it's healed is because you're showing up with truth, right? Which is Eris, who's right next door. Together in Aries, that I am present of like, yeah, no, you can do this. That moon, and I cannot express this enough, that moon in Sagittarius, right? Ready to have a good time. Okay, we love our Saggies. Let's go have a good time. But also being able to have a good time and having that confidence from Mars, that confidence from Leo, that confidence from Aries, right? That confidence from Eris now, who's right next to Chiron. And Chiron saying, no, this is healed. And Eris is saying, yeah, it's healed. Let's get this. It's time for our truth. It's time for us to be who we want to be. In that moon in Sagittarius being like, "Ah, I love it. Let's rock and roll." Sagittarius is ready to get out there and have fun. It's hot. It's hot outside. He wants to have a party. But to get there, we might feel a little uncomfortable. We might feel a little sad. We might feel a little vulnerable, right? Since woman came in, we were talking the day I had a client. She's like, everyone keeps telling me I need to feel vulnerable. I was like, you're fine. A lot of times, the way people use the word vulnerable, I don't think is what vulnerable means, especially to us, because it's so personal. Someone acting one way could feel like being vulnerable, but you acting that same way might not seem like you're being vulnerable. So take a beat, listen to yourself. This full moon, right? It shows us, it illuminates. It's a way that we're like, oh, I need to let go of that. And then it's also a way, okay, this is what I need to bring in, right? Because this is a time when we are our most psychic, so don't overthink. Get back into this idea of feeling with the body. Sun is still in Gemini, which will, of course, us be thinking, but we don't have to overthink. We can go into the heart. We can see how we want to communicate. Gemini's ruler, like I said, just moved into Cancer. So hopefully we'll be communicating a lot more softer, a little more empathetic, um, a little more quicker, no problem. Um, but with empathy as well. Okay, friends, I think I'm going to leave it at that for right now. I hope you guys have a happy full moon. I hope this gave you some insights on where things are with emotions, right? And we do have all this fire coming in. So if things do get lit back up, you don't have to take it to 10. There's so much cooling water there, right? With Cancer. Um, there's so much air there with Gemini, right? It can make the flames go down. But if you want to fan those flames, you can do that too. Always remember we have free will, right? We can do this. We are sentient beings. We do have free will. We do think on our own, okay? We do have feelings, all those things that separate us from machines. Okay, guys, I'm gonna leave it there. I hope happy Vesta Feast Day. And if you're celebrating Vestalia, happy Vestalia. I hope you have the rest of the celebration. And if you guys don't know anything about Vesta, please take this time to go look her up. It's a beautiful goddess to get back in touch with, especially with the time with the flame. And it's also this beautiful idea too that the flame was a feminine form, right? Because in astrology, we do see fire in that masculine form. So seeing how she started as a beautiful feminine form is also just another way to integrate it as well. And then on the 11th, I hope you guys have a great full moon in Sagittarius. Go out and do something fun, because Sagittarius likes to have fun. Okay, friends, if you have any questions, please reach out in the comments below, and I will see you guys soon.